Peace and Islam. Welcome unto the Amexem-Moor-Empire, Department for the Communications, Moor's Internet, Televideo-Network, or M.I.T.N for short. It is a part of the Imperial Broadcasting Agency. For the record, today's date on the Amexem-Moor calendar is Peace Day, 18th of Parisima, in the year 301-630. I am the Honorable Noble Tina Wadil, and I serve as the lead video broadcasting agent, and I shall be your hostess for this broadcasting segment. This is the Amexem-Moor-Empire Perspective, segment 33, and it's entitled Fiscal Budget Proposal for the year 301-630, an unconventional path to a budget, Islam. So we welcome back to our segment, His Imperial Majesty and Inu El Bey. Peace and Islam, Grand Hani, and welcome back, Islam.
Peace and light, Islam. Good to see you. How are you faring this evening?
All is truly well, and gratitude for asking. And trusting all is well with you. Also, likewise, Islam. Islam. So yes, today we're covering the negotiations process for the recent fiscal budget proposal that we had, Islam. And we would like your perspective on that, Islam.
How did we get here?
Yes, the process, yes.
Unconventional would be the understatement. We had a lot of outside forces that were interacting upon our ability to be fiscally responsible in your service. As I've spoken about over the course of months, we have had many factors that had to be dealt with. The biggest thing being the massive rise, basically the tripling of the cost of silver since last Moore's Emergence Day. And given that the bulk of what we have collected as a rule and business taxes and monthly contributions is generally in silver. When you look at our fiscal budget laws going back 20-something Earth years, you will see on the top that it's specified in gold and silver. When you look at the key at the bottom, you can see the gold and silver price that is pegged for the duration of a respective fiscal budget law. We were not able to do that with this particular fiscal budget proposal, now fiscal budget law, because of the massive increase and rapid increase in the silver quote-unquote price. It made it extremely difficult for the Imperial Council to figure out what would be the rate of inflation or the rate of deflation for the duration of what could have been and now is the next fiscal budget law. So once we enter into the deliberations phase a few months back, the quote-unquote silver price was not getting cooperative at all. It was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, making it increasingly more difficult by the moment for us to be able to find a happy medium, to find a way forward to figure out what to do with inflation or deflation regarding the then fiscal budget proposal. So because of all these outside factors, the demand for silver and things of this nature, and then recently it got complicated further still because there was a drug cartel leader that was killed, and the area that he actually controlled didn't have the silver mines in the central Amexem. All of the major transport routes from those silver mines that would get the silver where it needed to go for processing and for dispatch to global markets went through the territory that he controlled by superior force of arms. So his son already had been locked up prior to him being killed, which means his lieutenants would be fighting over territory. These things could impact and would impact the ability to transport that metal, unfinished or finished, out of the area to the markets that generally hold it, Londinium, Port Hannah, at the COMEX. So when we saw this happen, it just made us give thanks for the simple fact that prior to this event occurring, I had gone before the Imperial Council in your service to move for a constitutional amendment, because previously we only had three precious metals with intrinsic value that we use as a medium of exchange within the Amexem-Moor-Empire: platinum, gold, and silver. We've added now copper to that. 99.9% fine copper is now the fourth lawful medium of exchange within the Amexem-Empire jurisdiction and venue. And that is what allowed us to be able to deal with the inflation or deflation issues. Because now the international cost of copper is far more reasonable than the international cost of silver, let alone platinum or gold. So for the first time ever, when you look at the top of the new fiscal budget law, you will not see where it's settled in how many ounces of gold or silver funded. It is settled in copper, because copper is a very reasonable international rate. So it made it far simpler to settle the inflation or deflation issue. And as I explained previously in other segments of this particular presentation that you do, spoke to the issue then. The deliberations were one thing, getting through them, and to the point where the Imperial Council would be satisfied to proceed into negotiations, that was being held up because we were looking at the issue of what to do with inflation, and it was extremely difficult. So the deliberations phase went far longer than it normally would. Once there was a constitutional amendment that made it easier for us to deal with that by adding the copper as a new medium of exchange, a fourth medium of exchange, I took the position, all right, well, we've gotten the big problem out of the way. We should be able to proceed and get this budget process moving along. We spent 3 more rounds of deliberations that I did not anticipate. I didn't think it was going to be like that. However, that's just the way it went. The Imperial Council was disinclined to proceed into negotiations for another 21 Earth days. So we did not. So when we finally got to their first round of budget negotiations, it had to deal with the block monies for the departmental portion and line items sections of the fiscal budget proposal, now fiscal budget law. Specifically, everything that I actually asked for in the fiscal budget proposal, the Imperial Council, they decided that what was being asked for was practical, was sensible, the arguments were solid, the framework was sound. I had made good faith efforts where I could to decrease particular things and lower costs where I could, even though this fiscal budget law now is larger than the one it's about to replace, our current fiscal budget law being $3.15 billion in gold, the new fiscal budget law being $3.69 billion in gold. It's because I did ask for a few more large items, large capital items, if you would, capital equipment or investment, if you would, for particular things that we had to have going forward for our infrastructure. So other than those outlays, and even with those outlays, the cost was in fact kept down. The Imperial Council respected that I took the efforts to be reasonable, and so they chose to be reasonable, and we met each other halfway in your service. So it was not so much a concern about what was in the fiscal budget proposal that kept us going as long as we did. The first round of negotiations was nothing heavy or complicated. So last night, during the second round of budget negotiations, there were no additional items that were brought before the floor for us to negotiate or discuss. So I pivoted and asked the Imperial Council questions regarding the inflation aspect, because that had to be settled. So the negotiations were really about that. And that didn't take long at all. And some back of the envelope or back of the napkin quick mathematics by at least two of the Imperial Council members as we discussed this, I had to lay out two different examples, and quick calculations were done. And at that point, supervision for the Imperial Council, they were satisfied. So I saw a window, I saw an opportunity. So I'm like, I'm gonna jump. And I went for it, and I just asked the supervision for the Imperial Council, would they be prepared for us to consider going into a vote here or in the next session in the third round? I didn't think it would work. So 2 rounds of budget negotiations, then we're going to go for a vote? No, we won't be doing that. I didn't see it happening. I just operate on my usual modus operandi, which is you never know till you ask. So I asked. And so under Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 1, 2, and 3 of our Constitution, I did put that question before the Imperial Council Supervision. And the response came back, no, they were ready to go ahead and start ready to proceed to a vote. Oh, well, for the record, I moved to poll the Imperial Council, your colleagues, to see whether they're ready to proceed on to a vote and see if there's a consensus. Do you concur? There was concurrence, and so I polled the Imperial Council members in your service. There was some hesitation. I expected that, because like I said, I didn't think it would work. So, however, the majority did get to the point they're ready to proceed to a vote. So under Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 1, 2, and 3 of our Constitution, I did my duty and called for the vote. Under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 4 of our Constitution, a motion was put on the floor for the vote, and a second was placed on that particular motion. And so, in your service, Amexem-Moor-Empire Imperial Council Fiscal Budget Vote 301631-01. The roll call was initiated, and the votes were cast. So as I said, I didn't think it was going to work, but however, that's where we were. We made it to a vote. So I wasn't expecting things to be unanimous. I figured there was going to be some resistance. However, once the momentum started going, the Imperial Council decided, and the vote was in fact unanimous. That I did not expect. Just the same, the Imperial Council and I did our constitutional duty under Article 6, Section 2, Clause 1. I did in fact propose before the Imperial Council in your service the fiscal budget proposal. The Imperial Council in your service did decide by way of Imperial Council vote what would be the fiscal budget law. The Amexem-Moor-Empire is a constitutional monarchy, not a monarchy. I did not have absolute power as your constitutional monarch. The money, in terms of what the fiscal budget law looks like, is determined specifically and exclusively by the Amexem-Moor-Empire Imperial Council. And they did decide last night to do that. So I got you some fiscal responsibility in the form of a competent fiscal budget law as deliberated upon, contemplated, discerned upon, and voted upon by your Imperial Council. And here we are. So, nothing about this has been conventional at all. That's got to be the longest deliberations I've ever seen. Probably the second shortest I think we've had 2 rounds before. However, yeah, one year we finished very early. That fiscal budget proposal didn't have any issues with inflation. It didn't have, basically everybody got what they wanted. We made a lot of, we had like I think several, we had several insertions and amendments to that particular proposal that year. And that was done early in deliberations. So everybody got what they wanted. They were like, what's the point? And we were out. We finished that fiscal budget proposal in less than 3 months, which is unheard of. So this time around, we pushed deliberations longer than we ever have. And as I said before, at certain points, things were a little contentious. And I'm saying a little when I know it was just outright contentious. So, and with good reason. As I said to you before, it was a tall ask before the Imperial Council to get them to stick their neck out on a rider to deal with inflation. Not with silver, literally at that point, that at the time, double what it was for Moore's reimbursement. Now triple what it, well, it's retreated. It got to triple what it was. Now it's back down to a little more than double what it was during last Moore's reemergence day. It's basically 6 months back. So you couldn't reasonably expect an Imperial Council member to say, all right, well, we're just going to write a quote-unquote blank check and say whatever the silver price is going to be at the time of acquisition of everything in this fiscal budget, we'll authorize the acquisition. No, that's no. So it was to be expected. And so again, the masterstroke here was adding a fourth medium of exchange, copper, and being able to settle what the inflation or deflation would look like using the medium of exchange of copper to settle our fiscal budget law. And we did. And now we will show you what $3.69 billion in gold will buy on 4 continents in 1 island chain. So as the nationals make their monthly contributions, as the businesses pay their business tax into the Imperial Treasury, as we get voluntary contributions beyond what come in from standard, we shall apply those to the fiscal budget law to acquire the items that we now have in our next fiscal budget law. So the current fiscal budget law, again, $3.15 billion in gold expires at sunrise on 1 Kumar 301631 on the Amexem-Moor calendar, the spring equinox event on New Year's Day. And the new fiscal budget law replaces it at sunrise 1 Kumar 301631 on the Amexem-Moor calendar. And that's how we got here, and this is where we are. So, do you have any follow-on questions for me at this point, Amino Bettina?
I was curious, besides the additional medium of exchange that was added and the current state of so-called silver prices within the markets, what would you say was were there any additional hangups as to why the deliberations took this length of time?
That requires some speculation on my part. I am not going to crawl into the mindset of the Amexem-Moor-Empire legislative branch. I'm going to leave the Imperial Council to the Imperial Council's business. So for me to say why they decided that 21 Earth days of additional deliberations were necessary, I did say to you in the previous segment, I had no idea what we were even going to be deliberating on. Like, well, what is there left for us to... It's their prerogative. They are a co-equal branch of the Imperial government operations. And if they don't decide that they want to proceed into negotiations, I don't have the leverage to move them. So I think I can't answer beyond that. They literally had to decide when they were ready. I could cajole them. I could hint. I could elbow them in the ribs. I could firmly suggest. I could ask politely. That's about as far as I can go. As department heads, I get to tell them what to do in your service, as I've said before. However, in their role as Imperial Council members and your service with their vote, they tell me what to do. So when it comes to the budget process, it's not where I get to sit down and I'm calling shots as constitutional monarch. When it comes to the budget process, they're not calling shots. We have to sit down as adults and be polite and be effective in our responsibilities. I have to get you a competent fiscal budget law. They have to decide what competent actually is. Just because I asked them for it doesn't mean that they're going to agree. The Imperial Council is many things. A rubber stamp most certainly is not one of them. Votes have to be earned. That means arguments have to be solid. I got to be prepared for their counter argument. I have to have counter to all of their various counters. We can go round after round after round. I got to be ready. Because they will come for that neck. Because they're ready. Their entire job is to say no. It is their job in your service to make me crawl over cut glass on my knees and prove that what I'm asking for is practical, sensible, saves lives, improves the quality of lives, is honorable, right, and just in your service. That's their job. You say this is viable. You say this is practical. You say this is sensible. You say this is a solution. You say it's needed. You say it's necessary. Convince me if you think you can. That's their response to me. If you think you can. And then, Princess Aida, good luck with that. Prove it. Why did you ask for this unit over this unit? They're the same exact unit. They're the same features. This one has less torsion than that one. This one rusts. That one does not. This one cracks. This one does not. This one has a better warranty than that one. Prove it. You're asking us to approve $3.69 billion in gold? Really? Do tell. Do tell. And how exactly does this work? What value do we get for the nationals with this? What's the cost to benefit ratio here? What's the return on investment here? Go on. Explain. This is not an explain thing. Explain. Earn this vote if you think you can. Princess Aida, good luck. You're going to need it. Because if you think I'm going to agree, you think I'm going to approve the $3.69 billion in gold? And folks laugh and mock. Why does the imperial government for the Amexem-Moor-Empire have a $3.15 or now a $3.69 billion in gold fiscal budget law? Why? The population is less than 61,000 now. Large population on both sides of the ocean. Why do you have a fiscal budget that large? Tomorrow, if any of our folks begin to wake up, we're able to expand and take care of their needs because we're budgeted out for it. No need for a supplemental budget. We took care of it in the primary. if there's to be a supplemental budget, it's because we exceeded by far our fiscal budget that we have now and the next one. We are budgeted out to operate in 45 command areas across the planet. All equipment, materials, and supplies uniform. And some things that are exclusive to particular areas that have a need that others don't. Maybe one is arid, maybe one is frozen, frigid, cold. So they require different things. We're prepared for 45 command areas. We're only in 23 across the planet. So we have expansion abilities up to 45. 3.15 billion now in gold, 3.69 billion in a few Earth days in gold. If we expand into, say, additional cities across the planet, different command areas across the planet, well, that's going to require us to revisit things now with a supplemental fiscal budget, a supplemental to the main. It's never happened. I'll never say never. Our folks on this side of the ocean, they move different than our kith and kindred and our folks on the other side of the ocean. Our folks on the other side of the ocean, they move as a unit. And they don't joke around. Over here, our folks are individualistic. On the other side, they move by the village. That's how they roll. We had a lot of things we had to adjust to once we got operational on the other side of the ocean, and our fiscal budgets have had to evolve ever since as a consequence of this. That's the best way I know how to lay out things for you, Honorable Noble Tina. Way beyond what you asked. However, I need to give you some context so you can acquire proper perspective. Do you have any other follow-on questions?
My only follow-up question I was going to go into, you mentioned earlier there was a few changes within the proposal that became law regarding infrastructure. So I was going to ask about that, just a little bit of information regarding it. But I do believe you covered some of it in terms of when you spoke of the different command areas where we are active underway, and also the additional ones that we are to expand into in the future. So,
yes, different command areas require different things. Some places we're more agricultural. The Amexem-Moor-Empire Commerce and Trade is agriculture based. However, some areas we are more agriculture than others. And how we go about doing the agriculture is different. So the infrastructure is different. We require on this side of the ocean, because of the industrial insanity and other things that's in the air, what goes up must come down. We're not big on growing anything outside in North or Central Amexem. We prefer to grow everything indoors, control the environment, if you would. Whereas our outdoor food growth operations, that's all in Sector 4 and a little bit in Sector 5. So we have indoor greenhouses on both sides of the ocean, some large, some larger. And I know when folks hear about greenhouses from us, they presume all indoor. On this side of the ocean, we have one outdoor greenhouse and several indoor greenhouses in all the various command areas. However, in the Albion District, Sector 5, we have outdoor and indoor greenhouse growth operations. Well, it's an outdoor greenhouse that happens to have an indoor greenhouse in it. Still, we have outdoor growth and we have outdoor greenhouse growth operations in the Albion District. Here, again, it's all indoor. In the Sector 4, the Alkebulan and the Abzu, well, we have all outdoor for now. We are repairing the outdoor greenhouse, in the Shati Gardens in the Azania Montebello District in the Abzu Southern Rim region. And that's a very large outdoor greenhouse. We had transferred the solar power that we had and the water tank that we had to the new area where the outdoor greenhouse is. So when the repairs are complete, within a few days, we're going to commence our growth there. As we're coming into the spring, they'll be going into their autumn. However, for the first time, we're going to be able to grow food year-round in the Amexem-Moor-Empire district because we have a very large outdoor greenhouse. So we're excited about that. So that's what I mean by infrastructure. That's a large piece of infrastructure. It's about 100 feet long. That outdoor greenhouse, it's large. I was surprised. Just the same, we will be engaging in our food growth there year-round because of that particular large outdoor greenhouse. Even though we also, again, grow outdoors in the Amexem-Moor-Empire district. So I'm going to have to leave my comments there on that particular aspect. Do you have any additional follow-on questions?
Oh, Islam, that concludes my questions for this segment.
Islam.
I just want to give you the floor once again for any closing remarks regarding what we discussed so far today. Islam.
I don't really have any. I'm actually, technically speaking, I'm supposed to be off now. That's technically not true. I've already started working on fiscal budget proposal 301632 because what choice do I have? So, no. It used to be that once we got fiscal budget law set, that I could take basically a month, maybe 2 months, and I would start maybe about a month after our new year began. So in other words, New Year's about to come in a few Earth days from now, and normally a month after I would start the next fiscal budget proposal. That was true until about 4 Earth years ago. Fiscal budget laws have gotten larger because we were getting larger. So I had to start working on the fiscal budget proposals earlier, which is a fancy way of saying as soon as I finished one, it's the biggest part of my duty, obligation, responsibility in your service. So it's a non-stop thing for me. And because of the various things happening across the planet, conflicts, violent conflicts, market conflicts, it has really, as this budget process has shown us, it has complicated things extremely to the point that we literally had to add a fourth lawful medium of exchange in the form of copper just to deal with the potential issues of deflation and inflation. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there because my brain is fried. So I shouldn't say it. However, you know what I'm getting at here. I'm going to just decompress and find my peace. Islam.
Islam, we are truly, truly grateful for your take and action also regarding fiscal responsibility required to run the Amexem-Moor-Empire. So we thank you for your service. On behalf of myself, the Moors Internet Television Network, and our wonderful audience, we say gratitude, Grandhedi, and thank you once again, Islam.
Islam.
Right, and for more information regarding them, the Amexem-Moor-Empire perspective and imperial government operations down to the local level, contact is available through the website that we influence, which is M.I.T.N. That's squarespace.com. That website again, M.I.T.N. That's squarespace.com. So please share this segment with all who you associate with. Leave us a comment. We would love to hear back regarding that, Islam. And last but not least, you're encouraged to share this segment and the previous segments with all who you associate with. So, and until next time, on behalf of His Imperial Majesty, all of my fellow Amexem-Moor-Empire nationals all across the planet, we say great health upon all of you and upon all of us. And with that, we say Islam.